There's been a lot of talk recently about transsexuals in professional sports. And someone's been asking me for the last few days, again and again, what do I think about transsexual people in the shooting sports? So I thought today I'd step on that landmine. Hey everybody, Yankee here. I don't think this has been a real problem, transsexual women competing in shooting sports. But, someone apparently does because they keep asking me about it. They've sent me emails pretty much every live chat for the last week asking me about this topic. So I thought I would address it. This is one of those questions where you can't win. If you say, no, transsexuals shouldn't be able to compete, transsexual women, men transitioning to women. It doesn't really seem to be much of a problem the other way, although there is a case or two of it. But generally, it's men identifying as or transitioning to women that are wanting to compete against women. That's the problem. And if you say you're against that, well, you're anti-trans and you're a bigot. And if you say you're for it, well, then you're anti-woman. You're a jerk. So you really can't win in this situation. But I thought I'd go ahead and answer it. Now, first off, I'm going to say I don't give two shits about sports. About professional sports. Ever since there's been tyrants who want to maintain power and control over the masses, they've used sports. Give two poor people clubs and have them fight and then let everybody else bet on it. Let them watch people race chariots around, a circle. Now it's NASCAR. It used to be chariots and horses. We'll keep them distracted with that, and we'll keep them hating the people on the other team. And then they don't really pay attention to why they should be hating us, the people in power. They've been doing that for as long as there's been people, I think. So I'm not a big fan of professional sports. And when it comes to men competing against women, I really wouldn't care if they made all sports, co-ed. Which would basically be there was just male sports, because if you were only going to have so many teams and so many spots and it was open to men and women, it's pretty much going to be all men. Let's just face it, most sports men have a huge advantage. And even though I have no problem with transsexual women, men who transition to female or just identify as female, I'm fine with anybody identifying however they want to identify. I don't care what pronouns you want to use. I will be respectful. According to the internet, I've said this before, my pronouns are pretty much fag and asshole, occasionally communist. So who am I to say anything about anybody else's pronouns? So be who you want to be, do what you want to do. It's your life. Do what makes you happy. And I'm like that up until the point where your decision starts to harm someone else. And you're okay with harming other people. Then I have a little bit of an issue. And since men do have an advantage in most sports, it does make it to where women can't compete. And even though I don't think sports are important, a lot of people do. So I don't think it's fair in most cases for transsexual women to compete against biological women. And if people want to keep sports separate, that's on them. I'd say you make leagues. Some are the Y chromosome leagues. You got to have a Y chromosome to participate. And the other leagues are no Y chromosomes allowed. You can't have Y chromosome and compete. So if you want to compete in the Y chromosome field, you either have to be XY or XXY or XYY, which you probably don't want them competing because they're probably going to stab everybody. But you know what I'm saying. Just XXXY basically. Don't get into the labels of man or woman. That just complicates things. Gender complicates things. Just male, female. And it's from your genetic profile. That's how you decide what they are. But like I said, don't really care about sports, but I don't like when people take an unfair advantage. I'm all for letting people live their lives, like I said. And I would think most people who are true transsexuals, who believe they're a man, but they should be a woman. They believe they're a woman in a man's body, or vice versa. Whatever. If you actually believe that and you're willing to go through all that to be what you want to be, I support that 100%. Got no problem with it, as I said. But still, I think most people that want that, if they could have a society that said, we're totally open to you, well, why can't they accept that, okay, but now that you're wanting to live as a woman, we're totally accepting of that, but you can't compete in women's sports? Come on. Give us that. I think most transsexuals would be fine with that. I always am a little suspect of anyone who wants to compete especially when they haven't even transitioned yet. I'm a little suspicious of that. In fact, I think a lot of people are put up to that just to keep people divided. So I don't think they should be able to compete. Now, like I said, if they want to make all sports co-ed, I'm fine with that. And here's another thing that really irks me with the gun community and people on the right. And this is one of the main reasons I wanted to answer this question. Because if you're someone that says the government needs to step in and make this illegal, well, then you're kind of thinking wrong for someone who's supposed to be conservative. Because aren't we supposed to think the government doesn't need to step in on things like this and to stay out of our private lives? And sports, professional sports, that's private industry. That's a business. That money that's generated from those sports goes into very few pockets. It's their business. And if they want to allow transsexual women to compete with women, that should be their choice. And if they do that, like if the WNBA tomorrow started saying, we're going to allow transsexuals to compete. Well, I think pretty soon it would just be the TNBA, not the WNBA, because it'd just be all transsexuals. And then nobody would, actually probably more people would watch. That'd probably be far more successful. I would probably watch that. So that would probably happen. But then the women, if they wanted to compete, they probably would not want to be involved in that. So that would open up a new market. Someone else would open up a new WNBA or a new version of it to where women could compete. And they would say, you got to have XS chromosome, no Y chromosome. That's how private business works. And sports are a private business. Now, schools, high schools, colleges, different story. If they're publicly funded, I think there should be a set standard. Now, I'm not saying what it is. I'm not smart enough to make these decisions. And like I said, I don't think sports are important. And I don't even think there should be sports in like public schools. And when you get to colleges, I'm dubious about that too. But like I say, there should be a set standard there since that is publicly funded and they're competing against other schools, etc. We do need a standard, but I don't care what it is. Like I said, I don't care if they want to make them all co-ed or whatever it's called. You know, whatever, open to all sexes. Because like I said, sports are not important. Now, as far as the shooting sports, to answer the question more specifically, I don't even know if it'd be a problem in shooting sports. If all the shooting sports groups want to say no transsexuals, well, then I'm fine with that. It's their industry. It's their business. They can do that. And I would think most transsexuals would understand that. As long as people were treating them with respect in their everyday life. They would have to understand, well, there's some concessions I have to make. You know, I'm not going to be able to have children, and I can't compete against women. It's just two of the bad sides of it. Everything else, though, everybody's being really accepting, and it's awesome. I think most people will be okay with that. But in shooting sports, like I said, I don't know if it'd be that big of an advantage. Because when you look at like the top 50 shooters in the world, there's a big bunch of them as women. So I'm sure there's some women that can hang with pretty much most men. So I don't know if it would be a big issue, really. If someone could show me that men have a distinct advantage over women in shooting sports, well, then I'd be like, okay, well, then they probably shouldn't compete against each other. But then again, I would still say it's not up to the government. It's up to the people who run those organizations, who run the sport. These people that keep asking the government to step in and settle this, you know, why are you always, the government needs to stay out of my business when it's this and that and this and that, and they need to leave me alone and private freedom until someone over there is doing something you don't like, and it's like government needs to put a stop to that. Government needs to do something about that because I don't like it. That's hypocritical. I don't like that. I think most people who watch my channel know I don't like hypocrites. So I guess my opinion on all of it is I think, for one, it's a big blown up issue because how many transsexuals are in the world? I don't know. What, like 38? You know, that are wanting to participate in sports. Out of millions and millions of athletes, how many are actually transsexual? A handful, maybe. So if we have to disappoint a handful of people, so be it. Or if they want to let them compete and disappoint a bigger group of people, namely women. I don't care. It's not important. But like I said, the decision should be up to the people who run the sport or run the organization. Like the PGA should get to make the decision about golfers. The WPGA should get to make the decision about women golfers. That's their business, not the government's. And people who say they're conservative but want the government to make decisions like this, whether it matters or not, whether it's NASCAR or basketball or football or wrestling or things like chess or the shooting sports, where it might not even matter, I don't care. Like I said, don't think it's important, but people who want the government to decide, that I think is wrong on its face. And that's where I think a lot of people get this argument wrong.